Welcome back to The Explainer. So, what if you had an internal switch that literally protected your mind from every single insult, rejection, or failure that comes your way? Sounds kind of like a superpower, right? Well, it turns out it's not science fiction. When we look at 25 years of research alongside some of history's absolute heaviest hitters, a pretty wild pattern emerges. We're talking about historical giants who didn't necessarily have some kind of supernatural talent or crazy luck. Nope, they just shared one very distinct trait: an absolute, bulletproof mental immunity to external noise. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's dive into this, because before we start looking at history, we really need to look in the mirror. Ask yourself honestly, who actually controls your emotions? Is it you, or is it a delayed text message? Think about it. How often do you let an ignored message totally derail your mood? Or, a lack of likes on a post make you question your own worth? It happens to the best of us. As Henry Ford once pointed out, most people don't actually want to become mentally strong. They just want to feel good temporarily. They'll consume some motivational content, get super hyped for maybe 2 days, and then, boom, fall right back into those exact same fragile patterns, letting the outside world dictate their inner peace. So, to break that fragile pattern, we have to start with a rock-solid foundational truth. And this is the exact piece of advice that steel magnate Andrew Carnegie shared with a young Napoleon Hill in a closed-door meeting. He basically told him, someone else's opinion simply cannot alter your reality. Carnegie's whole thing was that you should really only take counsel from people who are already standing exactly where you want to be. If someone hasn't achieved what you're aiming for, their criticism isn't an actual threat. It's just background noise. And the crazy part? Napoleon Hill didn't just teach this principle later in life. He was literally forced to survive it. Back in 1929, right during the Great Depression, the guy lost absolutely everything. His home, his savings, his entire business, all gone. People were actually mocking him, calling him a total fraud for writing about success while he was literally living in poverty. Fast forward to 1937, and his legendary manuscript was rejected by every single publisher. They all said it was, way too philosophical and wouldn't sell. He really hit rock bottom, sitting all alone in a tiny apartment at 4 a.m. But instead of letting their opinions become his reality, he applied his own principles. He completely trusted his vision, and today, Think and Grow Rich is this monumental phenomenon that's sold over 100 million copies. Through those personal trials and honestly decades of analyzing unshakable minds, Hill identified these really specific, actionable systems for emotional control. Instead of just relying on vague, feel-good motivation, we've distilled all this down into 3 core pillars of emotional resilience. These are the exact frameworks used by moguls, brilliant inventors, and world leaders to totally detach their emotions from chaos. So let's jump into the first one. Now, what's really fascinating about this first pillar is this story behind this incredibly calm, almost robotic reaction. We're looking at John D. Rockefeller. One day, a messenger comes rushing into his office with catastrophic news. A massive business deal had totally collapsed, and millions of dollars were just gone. The entire room braced for an explosion. They were expecting screaming, throwing things, pure panic. But instead, Rockefeller paused. He closed his eyes for precisely 5 seconds, opened them, smiled, and simply asked, "Okay, what's next to do?" I mean, talk about a cool head, right? Rockefeller was using what we now call the 5-second emotional reset. He deeply understood that emotion is essentially a wave. If you try to fight it or if you hold on to it for too long, it's going to pull you completely under. So when disaster struck, his golden rule was to give himself exactly 5 seconds to genuinely feel it. The anger, the immense frustration, the grief. He accepted the wave. But the absolute second those 5 ticks were up, he mentally hit delete. He released the emotional attachment and instantly pivoted his brain to focus entirely on the solution. He essentially shut down the crisis in his own mind before moving forward. Moving on to our second pillar. This one comes straight from the laboratory of Thomas Edison. And it all starts with a pretty massive number, 100. That's the number of messages, letters, and critiques Edison received in his inbox every single day. Think about that. Basically, he was dealing with straight-up 19th century trolling. People constantly critiquing his experiments, telling him he was wasting his time, or offering all this totally unsolicited advice on how he should run his own lab. Imagine having to face 100 distinct voices trying to pull your focus away from your life's work every single morning. Exhausting, right? But Edison's response to all that overwhelming noise was beautifully simple. He actually hung a physical sign right inside his laboratory that said, "Not everything deserves your attention."
He realized super early on that replying to every single critic, or constantly defending his methods, or trying to explain his massive vision to skeptics, it was a huge trap. It was just an energy drain that actively prevented the real, meaningful work from actually getting done.
And to enforce this mindset, Edison created this incredibly ruthless mental filter. He kept a small notebook, and in it were the names of exactly 5 people. Just 5. And to even get on that list, you had to meet some seriously strict criteria. You had to be a verified expert in the field, have a proven track record of actual achievement, demonstrate genuinely good intentions toward him, be further ahead in life, and actually offer actionable advice. If someone didn't check every single one of those boxes, Edison considered their opinion to be absolute fiction.
The fundamental takeaway here from Edison's lab is honestly so liberating. You have to stop convincing people who aren't on your journey. Think about it. You literally never have to justify your vision to people who don't understand your level or your path. They really don't need to understand you, and you absolutely do not need to explain yourself to them. Ultimate freedom comes when you stop wasting your breath on the folks sitting on the sidelines and you just start letting your results do all the talking.
And that perfectly sets us up for the third and final pillar, which relies entirely on selective focus. This is the deliberate act of aggressively guarding your energy. And we learned this masterclass from Theodore Roosevelt. As the President of the United States, Roosevelt faced a relentless daily barrage of public attacks, intense political scheming, and really brutal media criticism. To survive that kind of intense pressure cooker without totally losing his mind or his temper, he had to master the art of selective focus. And his method brilliantly illustrates exactly how to pull this off. Roosevelt maintained a personal diary where he literally divided his entire world into 2 distinct columns. On one side, the battles he would actually fight, policies helping the country, decisions shaping the future, and actions that align with his core values. But on the other side, the battles he would completely ignore. We're talking personal attacks, petty political drama, media controversies, and cheap opinions. Roosevelt proved that reacting to every little thing isn't a sign of strength. It's actually a profound weakness. True power is found in selectively ignoring all the noise, so you can channel all your force toward the battles that actually move the needle.
So, we've unpacked 3 incredible frameworks today, but we do need to address a pretty harsh reality. Over his 25 years of deep research, Napoleon Hill noticed a staggering pattern. 95% of people will consume information exactly like this just to feel a temporary spark of motivation. They'll nod along, feel great, and then tomorrow, they'll let one rude comment completely ruin their entire day. Only 5% actually take these mental frameworks and aggressively apply them to the real world. And unsurprisingly, it's that exact 5% who end up succeeding in achieving true emotional freedom. So, I want to leave you with a fascinating and hopefully a little provocative question. Are you going to be part of the 95%? Or are you stepping into the 5%? I'm challenging you to test this out right now with a 7-day, 5-second reset challenge. For the next week, whenever you're faced with an insult, a tough rejection, or just a really frustrating moment, do not react immediately. Just pause for 5 seconds. Let yourself feel the wave, release it, and then pivot. Stop fighting the noise and just watch how quickly your mind becomes completely unbreakable.